Hi everyone, thanks for this episode of Nick Egan Times. On this episode, we have a sensational guest. We have the multi-talented and legendary Ray Buffer. Ray's an extraordinary US actor, singer, and voiceover artist. Ray has had an incredible and illustrious television, film, and theatre professional career with an unbelievable amount of credits to his name over his brilliant career, including some of the hit films Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, True Lies, Get Shorty, Hulk, Beverly Hills Cops, Axel F, Old School Like Mike, and 80 For Brady. Welcome to the multi-talented Ray, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. How's it all been going over there?
Well, it's up and down, with the strikes that we've had and the pending possible action with AOTC. It kind of makes the industry fluctuate. And, everyone's in a different boat. Every actor's different. Um, I've been fortunate enough to work throughout all the chaos. And, I credit some of that to the fact that I chose a couple of years ago to become Phi Corps, which within our union allows me to also work in non-union projects as well as the union projects. So I'm able to work when chaos is brewing, and I'm able to work when chaos isn't brewing. So it all works out.
Yeah, that's really good that you've got, I guess, both sides of it. It's incredible. All right, let's jump straight into it. Take us back. Tell me about growing up, your family, and what life was like for you back then.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from Florida, and I moved to California in 2000 thereabouts. But growing up in Florida was nice. It was a kind of a southern atmosphere, a southern upbringing. I lived in a small town called Green Acres, which was a suburb of West Palm Beach. Um, and I grew up with two very loving parents who adopted me. I was adopted at the age of 29 days. And throughout my upbringing, which was very happy, I always wondered about my origins. But it wasn't until after I became an adult that I was able to pursue investigating those origins. But growing up in Green Acres, my parents were very supportive of me when I wanted to stay after school and rehearse a play, or join the drama club, or pursue musical theater, or playing the violin, or playing the piano. They were just very supportive whatever I wanted to do. And being an only child growing up in an adoptive household, um, you know, uh, parents can sometimes be overprotective because when they adopt a child, sometimes the agency says, "Well, we're going to watch, and if anything bad happens to this boy, if he gets in trouble or he gets hurt, we're going to come and take him back." So what that does is create a little bit of a sheltered atmosphere where my parents were kind of overprotective, and going to musical theater practice or violin practice or whatever it was, whatever extracurricular activities I could find myself in, was kind of like freedom for me. It was a way to get out of the house and not be stuck all the time. And then I began to fall in love with the arts.
Great, thanks for sharing. And how did you get into, I guess, the arts? I suppose going into more though, like acting and movies. How did that all transpire?
Well, throughout high school, I was involved in community theater as well because, like I say, I was trying to find ways to stay, out and about and have my freedom. And, I had my first professional experience with the Palm Beach Opera while I was in high school. So I think it just became an offshoot of what I was already engaged in. When I went to school at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, I was also working at Jan McCart's Royal Palm Dinner Theater, and I earned my equity card while I was there in college. So the professional kind of coincided with the educational, and so at one point I just was working, and that was all there was to it. I there was no big transition from like learning to having nothing to do to then starting to work. I was always working while I was learning. So as a result, I never had that gap year that a lot of kids have where they just say, well, I'm 19 or I'm 22 and I just want to, travel the world and sow my oats. I never had that. And I married very young. I married at 21. So when I turned 50, I finally had the chance to have my gap year. And I went to Europe for the first time and experienced that with a backpack. And 3.5 weeks before the pandemic hit, I was in the Czech Republic when the lockdown happened. And this tattoo is a result of the lockdown because the only thing open in the Czech Republic after the lockdown was tattoo parlors and grocery stores. So I spent 15 hours in a chair, and it kind of created a map of my journey of that trip to Europe, which, I still want to come back. But anyway, I went off on a tangent there on you, but that's kind of like how my professional career started. It coincided with the educational.
Wow, that's great. And you've obviously been in a lot of films, TV series, shows. What's been your favorite, or what have been a couple that have stood out for you that you've really thoroughly enjoyed?
Yeah, and I don't want to disillusion you or anyone who listens to this. You named some very big films up front, and those were early in my career when I was doing a lot of background work. So yeah, I was in True Lies. It's shot in Miami when I was still living in Florida, and I'm in the scene where the Harrier jet lands, and he has his daughter. Schwarzenegger has his daughter on the nose of the aircraft. I was in Ace Ventura. I was in the scene where he's in the pink tutu and he's got the undershirt on in the asylum. But those were just background appearances, and that was the beginning of my career in Florida. What I really like are the smaller films, the indie films, where I'm more of a bigger fish in a small bowl as opposed to a small fish in a big bowl. I'm I have more to do. I carry more weight in the film, and there's more of a mutual respect going on where I can have a conversation with the gaffer or the first AD, and and we respect what each of us are bringing to the film. I particularly also enjoy student films because when you do some of these college films, which also are paying jobs for professional actors, but when you do these, you're working with hungry artists, kids that are learning, that are still passionate about showing up to set. They're not jaded. They're not like the guy who does props who's doing like some kind of game on his phone while he's at work, just waiting for it to punch the clock. They're hungry, and it's nice to be around that passion. So I think the school projects and the small indies so far have been my favorite.
Oh, that's great. Great insights. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Well, I think patience is an important factor in this field. I'm not sure if it was from one source or just something that I kind of realized on the path. But a lot of actors, they tend to look in the rearview mirror a lot. They'll audition for something and then they'll look in the rearview mirror like, when are they going to call? Then they like me? What, is my nose too big? Why am I not getting work? And they're focused on that one opportunity when, and while they're focused on that one opportunity, all these other opportunities kind of go by them because they're too focused on waiting for the results of one opportunity. And I think the biggest lesson I learned is just keep churning out the possibilities, keep sending in self tapes and auditioning, and don't look in the rearview mirror. Wait for the knock on the door. Wait for someone to send you a contract. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. When I was in my teens, I did work for the Palm Beach Opera, and I can't remember the name of the artist, but there was a singer there who he had this rich, deep baritone resonant voice. And at the time, I mean, I was still a bass baritone, but my voice wasn't as resonant as it is now. And I asked him, I said, well, how did you develop this wonderful voice, this tool that you have? And he said to me, I didn't. He said, you know what? You just wait long enough and it happens. You hit 40 and all of a sudden the resonance is there. I'm like, really? And so, I think a lot of people, a lot of singers perhaps pursuing opera might spend a lot of time trying to develop a sound that organically their body's just not ready to give them. So I reflect on that sometimes too, because it's not just a matter of trying harder. Sometimes you just have to wait for time to catch up.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Um, what motivates you daily?
Um, you know, I like routine. I like creating a routine so that I know, I'm going to go through all of the job possibilities and submit. And uh, part of the part of the difficulty of being an actor, the real work, is applying for the jobs, right? It's like you're constantly an unemployed person, always searching for the next opportunity. The real work is doing those submissions, doing those self tapes. It takes discipline to say, okay, I got to get home. I got to record these 8 self tapes, and I got to do it within this time frame, and I need to meet these deadlines. And you just have to kind of teach yourself to do that, because that is the real work. Everyone wants to be the guy that just shows up to set and is treated like a celebrity, and
Mm.
does his lines and has fun, and improvises and plays. But to get there, you first have to do the work of submitting for the job, auditioning, talking to the director and the producer, going to a callback, learning the lines, showing up on time, being in the right mindset, being sober, being professional. You have to do all of those things, and treating people nice, making it so that people want to work with you. Because if you're a blowhard, if you're egotistical, if you've got too many issues, oh well, I only drink um, still water with a hint of tangerine, please, in my dressing room. If you're that person, people aren't going to want to work with you very long. They'd rather have a nice guy who's easy to work with. So keeping all that in mind, that's what motivates me.
Wow. Out of the submissions you do, what, in your experience, roughly would be the percentage strike rate? So say you did 8, how many of those would you get work from?
Yeah, I would say those numbers have gone measurably up by being FICOR, because I don't have to only look at the SAG jobs. I can now also look at the non-union jobs and then decide. Some non-union jobs pay way less, and they want way too much work. And so you do kind of evaluation. Do I really want to show up and work a 13-hour day for $100? No. So I'll turn those down. Um, so I think that 1 in 10, I would say,
Cool.
1 in 10 that I book, or at least come really, really close to booking. Sometimes someone will put you on hold, or they'll call it an avail. And that's their way of saying, well, the producer hasn't really made their decisions yet, but we like you. So we're going to stick you on a shelf over here. Please hold the date for us. And if we can convince the producer to hire you, then we know you've got that date on hold. So I would say 1 out of 10, I'll at least get an avail or on hold. Sometimes they fall through because there are reasons that you don't get the part that you're not even in control of. The producer decides, yeah, I really want my niece to play that role, so we're going to change it into a young female role. Or, yeah, we really don't have enough of this particular racial dynamic, so we want to be diverse and hire a different person for this role. So things that you just can't control.
Yeah, it's out of your control. What are your current projects that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, still in post production, or still in production, really, is a sci-fi film called Sky Crash that I worked on in Oregon. Um, I'm sorry, in Washington and in LA. It's about a UFO that lands, and the debris of the UFO has magical properties. And so I play one of the government agents that goes out to accumulate this debris and keep it out of other people's hands. That's a fun show, a fun project that should be coming out. Um, Another project is called My Face. It was directed and written by a Ukrainian director with an all Ukrainian crew, which was really cool. That one did film in Oregon and also here in LA. And that is more like an action adventure with a little bit of a I guess a liturgical story. There's a little bit of a religious aspect to it. I play a ranger who's kind of like a second tier villain, who's going after the hero character at one point. So, you know, most of the roles that I book are character roles. They're going to be villains and thugs and big guys because I'm 6'4" and 270 pounds. So I get a lot of bikers and prisoners and guards. But then also on the flip side, I'll be cast as comedy against that type. So I'll be the big guy who acts completely different from what you would expect the big guy to act like. So sometimes that's my type. And I think type is a real important thing for an actor to understand because it's not what you see yourself as playing, it's what everyone else sees you as. That's how you're going to get cast.
Wonderful. What do you want your legacy to be?
I think just getting my name in the credits is pretty cool, because I know I don't have children, but I know that that's going to live on. Someone's going to see my name up there, when they stream something on Netflix or they go to the movie theater. Um, but I mean, I think I just want people to remember that I was an easy guy to work with, that I worked hard, that I had a good work ethic. And I'd like to, at least have some decent stories that I've helped tell left behind for people to experience.
Tremendous. Um, and what do you want your future like? What are your ambitions for the future?
Yeah, I mean, right now I've had a change in agents and my management because I want to focus more on the theatrical jobs. You were talking earlier in the interview about Ace Ventura and True Lies. Again, I was just a background player, a non-speaking role in those things. Now I want to have speaking roles in those bigger films. And to get that, you need an agent who's going to have exposure to certain types of audition notices and not focus so much on commercials and UGCs and verticals, some of these new types of projects that are out and popular now. But to actually get a season regular on an episodic show or a guest star on a film. Um, so I think that's where I'm at right now is to try and go to that next level to turn the page and actually get some roles that are meaty. They don't necessarily have to be big. That I don't expect I don't expect to lead a film, but to have a good supporting role, a good villain role in a substantially large budget film. I think that's where I'm heading.
Superb. And what are your passions and hobbies aside from acting? And obviously that's I guess your professional things. What do you like to do or like to on your downtime or for fun?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I read a lot. I have two small dogs. I like to spend time with them. Um, I have a girlfriend. We like to travel. I think traveling is probably my most favorite outlet. Seeing the world. I mean, we have a finite number of years in which to live, and if not to see the world that we're born on, what else is there to do? So I really want to explore. I want to see strange new things. I want to broaden my horizons. I want to experience different cultures. Um, I think that is where my passion lies when I'm not working.
Great. And where is the favorite place that you've been to so far that you've traveled to?
I can only cite this trip that I took just before the pandemic. One of the coolest experiences I had was I flew round trip to Madrid. So I had just arrived in Madrid and I decided after a couple days in Madrid to take a bus to Gibraltar and see Gibraltar, see the monkeys on the wall. And then I took a ferry from Gibraltar over to Morocco, to Tangiers. And just a transition in culture going from Madrid to Gibraltar to Tangiers, all in one fell swoop, very few miles between them, but the cultural difference, the being in an all Muslim environment in Tangiers and just being there for a few days and not speaking the language and just immersing myself in that. That was so rewarding. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredible experience too. Great experience.
Yeah.
All right. If you were 18 again and you could change anything, it could be personally and professionally, what would you change?
If I
If you
heard the
so,
last part.
if you could go back again and you're 18 again and you could
Oh,
change
18
anything
again. Yeah.
and you could change anything personally or professionally, what would you change?
Yeah, I don't think I would change a thing. Even the bad experiences you have, even the things that you get out of. I was married once, and that marriage ended. Even that I wouldn't change, because the experience going through that is what shapes you and hones you into the person you are today. I mean, it's like a butterfly effect, right? If you change one small thing, I might be a completely different person. And I like where I'm at right now. I'm at a place where, I can pay my bills, I can be an actor full time, and I'm still moving towards something. And I wouldn't want to change one small thing from back when I was 18 and chance being in a different place.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for sharing. Ray, thanks for coming on the podcast. I do appreciate it. It's incredible everything you've done and everything you're doing in the future. And yeah, thanks for coming on.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and good luck with you and the podcast.
Thank you, sir.